The mail columnist for the Grand Rapids Press joining us inside the press box here on the Huge Show. Our Huge Mondays feature my column, page 2 of the Grand Rapids Press sports section. This week I read about Tiger Woods. Also, you can read that on the Huge blog at mlive.com. Speaking of MLive, on the Mayweather page, your headline, David, reads, Floyd Mayweather's Plan B, Shane Mosley, fight expected to be announced this week. Is he going to demand the same type of drug testing for the Mosley bout that he was with Pacquiao and that killed that thing?
Well, I don't know. I'm sure that those issues have all been worked out. I understand where you're going with this, that Mosley, in fact, did use PEDs. He used the cream, the clear, and EPO back.
Did he play for the Giants?
and did not get caught in a testing system, in fact. If anything, Mosley is...
Do you see the hypocrisy a little bit here on credibility of flipping right to Mosley and the guy who had his, situation with PEDs?
I would see it if, in fact, you are working on the assumption that he's not going to demand testing of Mosley.
Yeah.
So let's wait and see what the requirement in the contract on that is. I would suspect that Mosley is probably willing to do whatever it takes to get the Mayweather fight. If he doesn't demand blood testing of Mosley, we're all going to question, well, why didn't you do it when you have a guy who was caught in a federal investigation? Bear in mind, Mosley never tested positive. I mean, this is the poster moment for Mayweather's argument that Nevada urine testing is insufficient to determine whether someone's using performance-enhancing drugs, because, in fact, Mosley tested positive or negative, I should say, on at least a couple occasions fighting in Nevada, when we know now through the Balco investigation that he was, in fact, using EPO, the cream, the clear, whatever he may have been using at that particular moment, and never did test positive. So I would think that one of the very first questions we'll ask when they actually start talking about this is whether, in fact, there will be some request or requirement that this be part of the contract.
Are they going to run this fight up against Pacquiao's fight?
No, it'll be May 1st, presumably at MGM Grand. The Pacquiao fight will be March 13th. It wouldn't surprise me if they come out with some sort of acknowledgement tomorrow in kind of a Steinbrenner-esque Yankees trump the Mets type fashion, because Pacquiao and Clottey have a press conference scheduled tomorrow in Dallas with Jerry Jones there and Arum and the two fighters and the trainers and everybody. And it wouldn't surprise me if Mayweather and Mosley trumped that by announcing that, in fact, they do intend to fight on May 1st, and kind of took some of the steam out of that announcement.
Who's going to buy the pay-per-view for Pacquiao? I could see Mosley, Mayweather, but Pacquiao, Clottey. It sounds like a fencing match. Who's going to buy that pay-per-view?
Well, I think it's a shaky pay-per-view. I've thought that all along. I mean, you're dealing with a guy. Clottey is not a real well-known guy. He's an African fighter who's, granted, he's very talented. I'm not knocking the quality of the fight, and I don't think you are either. We're just knocking the quality of the personalities and their ability to sell pay-per-view at $50 a shot to a U.S. audience that determines whether or not you make it in this game. So, you're not going to make it off a Filipino or an African audience. You're just not. There's not the revenue there. You have to sell to the U.S. public. So they've put this fight on pay-per-view in a 106,000-seat football stadium, and I don't know how it'll do, but I think it may be a bit of a disappointment. You'd have to be a real boxing insider to like the fight. I like the fight. I think it's a good fight. But I follow this, I mean, that doesn't make you a superstar that you can sell it to boxing insiders, because that'll get you 300, 350,000, 400,000 pay-per-views. Well, where do you get over the million mark then? Where do those come from? Because the mainstream public won't buy it. I don't think they'll buy it. If the fight did 500,000, 550 on pay-per-view, I think that'd be an overwhelming success, given how little people know in the general public about Clottey. Mayweather-Mosley is a big fight.
Do you think if it does bomb, that will force Arum and Pacquiao to come to terms on Mayweather's terms and fight him to reignite the passion behind Pacquiao?
I think there may be even a little more to it than that. I think you'd have to be foolish or wearing blinders to think that it not only forces him to come to the table, it forces him to renegotiate terms. It may make the Mayweather and Pacquiao fight tougher to make, because if Pacquiao-Clottey bombs and Mayweather-Mosley does what I think it can do, there's no way Mayweather agrees to 50-50 with
No. He becomes that's what I'm saying, David. Everything's on his side. And Mosley Mayweather, I'll watch. There's no way I'd dish out the cash for Clottey and Pacquiao.
Well, neither would I. I buy an HBO subscription. I'll watch it the following Saturday like everybody else will. Mayweather-Mosley's a big fight. I mean, there are three guys people want to see Floyd Mayweather fight: Manny Pacquiao, Shane Mosley, and Paul Williams. It had to be one of those three guys. When he couldn't reach terms with Pacquiao, and we can debate this till we're blue in the face as to whose fault it was, he went to the very next best option. It's a fight that's been brewing for 10 or 11 years now, and granted, Mosley's 38 years old. Mayweather will be 33. They're a little bit long in the tooth, but they're both still performing at extremely high levels, and assuming that Mosley beats Andre Berto next week, it's a highly desirable fight that'll do extremely well on pay-per-view.